I love Geto Boys. Fame is a mirage. I was just happy to be rapping, because if I wasn't famous, I would be living the life I was living before the fame.
Geto Boys, Houston, Texas, active since 1986. In a rap world that once looked no further south than Atlanta, a group from Houston stormed through the back door with a voice too loud, too violent, and too real to ignore. They weren't polished, they weren't marketable, and they didn't care. The Geto Boys weren't trying to entertain, they were trying to survive. Their music wasn't just raw, it was a scream from the margins. Stories of murder, mental illness, paranoia, and poverty set to beats that sounded like nightmares. For a moment, it felt like the group might change hip-hop forever. But the same fire that made them revolutionary burned everything around them, and far too soon. Geto Boys didn't just rap about the darkness, they lived in it. Scarface, the thoughtful philosopher, Willie D, the street poet with a political fist, and Bushwick Bill, the unfiltered soul of the group, a 3'8" grenade who lit up every record with chaos and vulnerability. When he shot himself in the eye during a drug-fueled argument with his girlfriend in 1991, and later used a hospital photo as the album cover for We Can't Be Stopped, it wasn't just a moment of shock, it was a warning. These men weren't characters, they were the pain. And pain doesn't chart as well as you think it might, especially for the originators. The industry didn't know what to do with them. Radio wouldn't play them, MTV wouldn't show them, white America was terrified, but their influence spread anyway, through tapes, word of mouth, and the undeniable genius of records like Mind Playing Tricks on Me, a haunting confession of street-induced mental collapse that became one of the greatest rap songs ever made. They were decades ahead of their time in content, sound, and authenticity, but early isn't always rewarded. Fame came, but it didn't stay. Scarface would go solo, Willie D would walk away, and Bushwick Bill would spiral. The Geto Boys weren't built to last, and maybe that was the point. They came to show the world parts of America most wanted to ignore, and in doing so, destroyed any hope of mainstream survival. They had talent, timing, shock value, but even that wasn't enough. This is the story of a group that was too real for the industry, and how hip-hop's darkest poets were left in the shadows they came from. What happened? Let's talk about it. Salute to Buddy Boy 864 on IG for this request. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth Music. Let's get it.
Let's get it!
Take a minute to like, subscribe, and comment on who I should do next. Geto Boys were a hip-hop group that began in the mid-1980s as a small act under Rap-A-Lot Records, founded by Houston mogul Jay Prince. The original lineup struggled to gain traction, cycling through members until a new trio formed: Scarface, Willie D, and Bushwick Bill. Each brought a unique voice: Scarface's grim introspection, Willie D's militant energy, and Bushwick's wildcard unpredictability. Together, they created something Houston and hip-hop had never heard before. Their 1989 album was raw, aggressive, and utterly unfiltered, catching attention for its unapologetic street narratives. In 1991, We Can't Be Stopped took them national, helped by the controversial album cover featuring a freshly shot Bushwick Bill. But as their fame rose, so did internal issues. Willie D left temporarily, Bushwick's instability became a liability, and Scarface leaned into solo success. What should have been a dominant Southern dynasty quickly turned into a revolving door of dysfunction. Stunt number 1, Too Real for Radio, Blackballed before they began. From the jump, the Geto Boys were too raw for the system. Their lyrics weren't coded or metaphorical, they were explicit confessions of violence, mental illness, paranoia, and street survival. Songs like Mind of a Lunatic and Chucky weren't just controversial, they were terrifying to mainstream audiences. Politicians and parent groups labeled them dangerous. Retailers refused to stock their albums, MTV banned their videos, and major distributors like Geffen Records dropped them outright due to public pressure. In a pre-internet era, that kind of blackballing was nearly a death sentence, while other rap acts were sneaking through the mainstream with slick production and coded language. Geto Boys were unfiltered and aggressive, refusing to water anything down. Scarface rapped about suicide and trauma with a voice that sounded like it had lived it. Bushwick Bill played the role of a deranged narrator with disturbing precision. Willie D channeled pure frustration into social commentary. But without radio or video support, their most famous song, Mind Playing Tricks on Me, broke through in 1991, not because the industry accepted them, but because the song was undeniable. Vulnerable, eerie, and brilliantly produced, it offered a window into the psychological decay that came from street life. It wasn't just a street anthem, it was therapy on wax. And even then, the group was forced to fight for every bit of recognition it got. The message was clear. The industry didn't mind rappers acting tough, but it couldn't handle them telling the truth. Geto Boys weren't ignored because they lacked talent. They were ignored because they reflected a reality too brutal for TV. And while their music eventually became foundational in Southern rap, they paid the price for being ahead of their time, forced to watch lesser acts with cleaner images get the platform they were denied. Stunt number 2, built on chaos, rotating doors, and implosion. Geto Boys never had stability, not in their lineup, not in their business, and not in their personal lives. From the start, the group was a revolving door. Original members came and went. Even after the classic trio of Scarface, Willie D, and Bushwick Bill locked in, it didn't take long for cracks to show. Willie D left after their breakthrough, frustrated with label politics and group tension. Scarface was in and out, balancing solo ambitions and growing disillusionment. And Bushwick Bill, he was a live wire, unpredictable, brilliant, and dangerous to himself and others. The most infamous moment came in 1991 when Bushwick, during a drug-fueled argument with his girlfriend, insisted that she shoot him in the eye, and she did. He survived, barely, and they used his hospital image for the cover of We Can't Be Stopped. It shocked the world, but for them it was business as usual. They didn't flinch at trauma, they sold it. Behind the scenes though, the trauma was real. Bushwick battled schizophrenia and substance abuse. Scarface dealt with depression and suicidal ideation, themes he poured into his verses. Willie D was vocal about distrust toward the industry, media, and even his own group. These weren't minor personality clashes, they were foundational issues that made the group more of a temporary alliance than a permanent unit. Every time they found a rhythm, something fell apart. Reunions happened, but the tension never left. Management issues, money disputes, and creative differences always brought it crashing down. Their chemistry was undeniable, but their foundation was cracked beyond repair. Geto Boys weren't destroyed by an outside force, they imploded from within. For every classic they gave the culture, there was another missed opportunity, another exit, another blow-up. They weren't built to last, they were built to explode, and that explosion left scars on each of them that would last a lifetime. Stunt number 3, the legacy that never got its flowers. For all they gave to hip-hop, emotion, honesty, darkness, and southern grit, Geto Boys remain one of the most underappreciated groups in rap history. Their music wasn't just ahead of its time, it predicted everything. Mental health in hip-hop, Geto Boys were rapping about it in 1991. Regional independence, they built their empire without coastal cosigns. Yet, when the culture hands out flowers, their names are too often left out. Part of that is the industry's fault. Geto Boys were never allowed to exist comfortably. Their music was banned, their stories too ugly for mainstream packaging. Even after influencing generations from DMX to Kendrick Lamar, the credit rarely circles back. Another part of it though was internal. Their chaos made it hard to sustain a run, and even harder to build a legacy the public could champion. While Scarface went on to solo greatness, the group never had a proper final act. Bushwick Bill's death in 2019 felt like the end of something. He was the group's soul, the unstable but brutally honest narrator who made you listen even when it hurt. In his final years, he attempted a comeback, sober and reflective, but time had passed. The industry that once feared him had forgotten him. Scarface and Willie D tried one last run, but it never hit the same. Geto Boys' moment had come and gone. The irony is that their impact is everywhere. Southern rap doesn't exist without them. Hardcore rap doesn't sound the same without their blueprint. And confessional storytelling in hip-hop owes them more than a nod. But legacy doesn't always get the recognition. Geto Boys were prophets in a time that wanted entertainers, and for telling the truth before the world was ready to hear it, they paid with obscurity. Their flowers will probably come too late, if they come at all. All in all, Geto Boys came into the game loud, unfiltered, and unapologetically raw, showing a side of America and black life that the mainstream didn't want to see. They didn't chase crossover success, and they didn't clean up their image. That refusal to compromise came at a cost. The industry turned its back, listeners flinched, and even within the group, the weight of truth was too heavy to carry for long. They gave hip-hop some of its most haunting records and opened the door for an entire region to have a voice, but they never got the celebration, respect, or reverence they earned for these reasons. Salute, much respect. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth Music, and I'm out.